This End Tavern had seen many strange creatures walk through its doors. Located on the trade moon of Four, it served as a meeting point for travelers from across the galaxy. Smugglers shared drinks with merchants. Bounty hunters played cards with scholars. Species of every shape and size came here to rest, trade stories, and forget their troubles for a while. And had worked behind the bar for 30 years. His four arms moved constantly, pouring drinks and cleaning glasses. His blue-scaled face had seen everything the galaxy could offer, or so he thought. The airlock hissed. Everyone in the tavern stopped talking. This was normal. Customers always looked up when someone new arrived, but this time nobody looked away. A figure stood in the doorway. It wore a strange suit covered in patches and repairs. The material looked old and worn, like it had been through a war. The creature was tall and stood on two legs. It moved with a strange confidence, each step steady and sure. Then it reached up and removed its helmet, and felt his blood turn cold. The face beneath the helmet was soft and fleshy. No scales, no shell, no protective plates of any kind, just pale skin stretched over bone. Two eyes faced forward like a predator, set above a small nose and a mouth filled with flat teeth. Dark hair fell around the creature's face, dirty and tangled. But it was the patch on the shoulder that made his hands shake. He had to read it twice to believe it. Terran Sol III. Sol III, Earth, the legendary death world. And had heard stories about that planet his whole life. Every child in the galaxy knew about Sol III. It was a warning, a horror story, a place so dangerous that survival there was considered impossible. Yet here stood one of its natives, alive, breathing, walking into his tavern like it was nothing special. The human looked around the room. Its eyes moved slowly, taking in every face, every corner, every shadow. Then it walked toward the bar. The crowd parted like water. Nobody wanted to get close. And tried to keep his hands steady as the human approached. Up close, it was even more terrifying. He could see scars on its face and neck, old wounds that had healed badly. This creature had been hurt many times and survived every injury. The human sat down on a stool. It moved slowly, carefully, like every joint ached. Dark circles hung under its eyes. Whatever this creature had been through, it had not been easy. "Water," the human said. Its voice was rough and tired. "Please." And poured a glass with trembling hands. He pushed it across the bar. The human picked it up and drank deeply. Then it set down the glass and looked at him. "I have been asleep for a very long time," the human said. "My ship crashed nearby. I do not know where I am. Can you help me?" And opened his mouth, but no words came out. He had served warlords and criminals. He had faced down armed robbers without fear. But this creature from the death world made him feel like a child. "You are on 4, he finally managed to say. "A trade moon in the system." The human nodded slowly. "The system. I do not know that name. How far is this from Sol?" "Very far," and said, "many thousands of light years." Something flickered in the human's eyes. Pain, maybe, or sadness. It looked down at its empty glass for a long moment. "My name is," the human said. "I was the security chief on a colony ship called the Perseverance. We left Earth 200 years ago. Our mission was to find a new home." She paused. "We did not reach our destination." 200 years. And could not imagine being alone for so long. Most species would go mad after just a few years of isolation. Whispers filled the tavern. Word was spreading. A human. A real human from the death world. Everyone had heard the legends, but nobody had ever seen one in person. The story said that Earth's gravity was crushing. That humans breathed poison air filled with a gas that made things burn. That their planet had earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and fires. That they evolved alongside monsters with claws and teeth and venom. That they could heal from wounds that would kill anyone else. And here sat one of these legendary creatures, asking for water like any ordinary traveler. looked around the tavern again. She seemed confused by all the staring faces. "Why is everyone looking at me?" she asked. Before Anne could answer, a shadow fell over the bar. A massive figure had risen from a table in the corner. It walked toward them with heavy steps. The collector, and felt his heart sink, was a bounty hunter. His body was covered in thick armor plates. His 4 arms ended in claws that could cut through metal. His face was a nightmare of mandibles and compound eyes. He had killed more beings than Anne could count. The bounty hunter stopped beside. He towered over her by at least 2 feet. His mandibles clicked together as he studied her. "A human," said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "I have heard many stories about your kind. I always wondered if they were true." Looked up at him. She did not move. She did not back away. She did not show any fear at all. "What stories?" she asked. "That you are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy," said. "That you come from a world so deadly that nothing should survive there. That you are nearly impossible to kill." His expression did not change. "I do not know about that. I'm just trying to find out where I am." Leaned closer. His mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile. "I think the stories are exaggerated," he said. "You look weak to me, soft, fragile." One of his clawed hands reached out and grabbed her arm. "I think I will test whether the legends are true." The tavern held its breath. Nobody knew what would happen next. Nobody could have guessed. They were about to learn why the galaxy feared humans. They were about to see what a Death World survivor could really do. Looked down at the claw gripping her arm. Then she looked up its face. She did not look scared. She looked annoyed. Had fought many creatures in his long career. He had faced warriors twice his size. He had hunted prey across burning deserts and frozen wastelands. He had never lost a fight, and he did not expect to lose this one. The human was smaller than him, weaker than him. She had no armor, no claws, no natural weapons of any kind. This would be easy. He tightened his grip on her arm, expecting her to cry out in pain. She did not cry out. She did not even flinch. Instead, she moved. Her free hand came up and grabbed his wrist. Her body twisted in a way he did not expect. Suddenly, his feet left the ground. The world spun around him. Then his back hit something hard, and everything exploded into pain. Lay in the ruins of a table staring up at the ceiling. His armor had cracked in 3 places. His body screamed with pain. He could not understand what had happened. She had barely touched him. She had moved so fast that he had not even seen the attack. The tavern erupted into chaos. Creatures screamed and ran for the exits. Tables were knocked over. Drinks spilled across the floor. Everyone was trying to get away from the human as fast as possible. Stood alone in the middle of the room. She looked down with a confused expression. "I am sorry," she said. "That was just a reflex. Are you all right?" Just a reflex. She had broken his armor with a reflex. And ducked behind the bar, his heart's pounding. He had seen many fights in his tavern. He had never seen anything like that. The human had moved with a speed and power that seemed impossible for her size. An old voice spoke up from the chaos. "Everyone please calm down." The speaker was a scholar named. She was ancient, her gray scales wrinkled with age. She walked with a cane and moved very slowly, but her voice carried authority, and the panicking crowd began to settle. Approached with careful steps. She showed no fear, only deep curiosity. Her eyes studied the human like a scientist examining a new species. "Fascinating," she said. "Absolutely fascinating. I have studied your kind for decades, but I never thought I would meet one in person." Watch the old scholar approach. "You know about humans." "I know about many things," said. "I am a keeper of knowledge for the Galactic Archive, and humans are perhaps the most interesting subject I have ever studied." She gestured to a table that was still standing. "Please, sit with me. I think there is much we should discuss." Hesitated. She looked around at the frightened faces watching her from doorways and corners. Why is everyone so scared of me? I do not understand. That said, is exactly what I want to explain. They sat down together. Slowly, some of the braver patrons crept back into the tavern. They kept their distance, but they wanted to hear. They wanted to understand. Folded her hands on the table. Tell me, what do you know about your home planet? Shrugged. Earth, it is just a planet. Mountains, oceans, forests, cities, nothing special. Nothing special, repeated. She let out a sound that might have been a laugh. Let me tell you what the rest of the galaxy knows about Earth. She leaned forward. Your planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. That is the highest rating for any world where life can still exist. To put this in perspective, a Class 3 world is considered dangerous. A Class 6 world is considered extreme. Class 9 worlds are used as prison planets because nothing can survive there without advanced equipment. And Earth is Class 12? Asked. Yes, your gravity is strong enough to crush most species flat. Your atmosphere contains a gas called oxygen, which is highly reactive. It causes metal to rust and organic matter to decay. Most life forms cannot breathe it without dying. Looked confused, but I need oxygen to live. Exactly. You evolved to breathe poison, shook her head in wonder. Your planet has unstable ground that shakes and cracks. It has storms that can destroy cities. It has extreme temperatures that swing from burning heat to freezing cold. It has predators with teeth and claws and venom. It has diseases that kill millions. And yet your species not only survives there, you thrive. The tavern was silent. Everyone was listening now. Your bodies, continued, are remarkable. You can heal from injuries that would kill any other species. Broken bones mend themselves. Torn flesh grows back together. You can lose limbs and continue living. You can take damage that would destroy anyone else, and you simply refuse to die. Touch the scars on her face. These are just old wounds. They healed on their own. On their own, repeated. Do you understand how terrifying that sounds? Most species need advanced medical care for even minor injuries. Your bodies repair themselves without any help at all. She pointed at its legs. You are also pursuit predators. Your species evolved to hunt by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You can run for hours without stopping, days even. You wear down your prey through pure endurance and then you kill it. Sat quietly for a moment. She seemed to be seeing her own species in a new way. I never thought about it like that, she said. To me, all of this is just normal. It is just how things are. Normal, said softly. That is what makes your kind so terrifying. The things that would be nightmares for any other species are just normal life for you. Had managed to stand up. He limped over to their table, clutching his cracked armor. Blood dripped from wounds that would take him weeks to heal. The stories are true, he said. His voice was filled with pain and something else. Respect, maybe. I grabbed her arm and she threw me across the room like I weighed nothing, and she said it was just a reflex. Nodded. Humans do not have a flight response like other species. When faced with danger, they do not run. They fight. It is built into their bones. They evolved alongside predators that could kill them in seconds. Running was not an option, so they learned to fight instead. Looked around the tavern at all the frightened faces watching her. She seemed sad. I am not a monster, she said quietly. I am just a person. I have been through a very hard time and I just want to find a way home. Reached out and gently touched her hand. Tell me what happened to you. Tell me about your ship and your crew. Help me understand what brought you here. Was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with grief. There were 3,000 of us when we launched from Earth. 3,000 colonists looking for a new home because our old one was dying. She paused. When I woke up from sleep, only 153 were still alive, and now even they might be in danger. The tavern grew even quieter. Everyone wanted to hear what had happened to the human and her people. Everyone wanted to know what could possibly hurt a species that came from hell. Took a deep breath and began to tell her story. Closed her eyes and let the memories come flooding back. They were painful memories, dark memories, but these strangers deserved to know the truth. Earth was dying, she began. We had poisoned our own world. The air was getting harder to breathe. The water was becoming dangerous to drink. Wars were starting over what little remained. So we built ships. Giant ships designed to carry colonists to new worlds far away. The Perseverance was one of those ships. She opened her eyes and looked at the faces around her. 3,000 people, families, scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, everyone you would need to start a new civilization. We were going to a planet called 442b. It would take 200 years to get there, so we would spend the journey in sleep. Frozen, dreaming, waiting for a new beginning. Was recording everything on a small device. Her old eyes never left his face. "What went wrong?" she asked gently. His jaw tightened. We were crossing a region of space called the Outer Reach. Nobody knew there was debris there. Rocks and ice moving too fast to see. Something hit us, something big. She was quiet for a moment, remembering the sound of the impact, the screaming of metal, the alarms that would not stop. The damage was severe. The ship systems started failing one by one. The pods began to malfunction. People who should have been safely frozen were dying in their sleep. Their pods just stopped working and they never woke up. "How many?" asked. 2,847, said the number like it was carved into her soul. "They died while I was still frozen. I had no chance to save them." The tavern was completely silent. Even, still bleeding from his wounds, stood frozen in place. The ship's computer woke me up because I was the security chief. It needed someone to assess the damage and make decisions. I was the one it chose. She laughed bitterly. Lucky me. When I woke up, the ship was falling apart. Power was failing. Life support was dying. The hull had cracks that let the cold of space creep in, and almost 3,000 people were dead in their pods. She looked down at her hands. They were rough and covered in old calluses. But 153 people were still alive. Their pods were still working. If I could keep the ship running, I could keep them alive until we reached somewhere safe. "And you did this alone?" asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, for 11 years. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. 11 years, alone, on a dying ship, in the empty darkness between stars. I learned to fix everything," continued. "I studied the ship's systems until I understood them better than the engineers who built them. When something broke, I fixed it. When power failed, I found another source. When food ran low, I rationed every meal. I slept only when I had to and woke up every few hours to check the systems." She touched a scar on her neck, and then there were the parasites. "Parasites?" and asked from behind the bar. "Void leeches. They came through the cracks in the hull. They are attracted to heat and movement. They wanted to feed on the sleeping colonists." Eyes grew hard. I did not let them. The aliens exchanged frightened looks. Void leeches were nightmares made real. They could dissolve flesh in seconds. Entire crews had been lost to them. "How did you fight them?" asked. "With whatever I could find, pipes, tools, fire, my bare hands when I had to." She held up her arms. Scars covered them from wrist to elbow. "They are not so dangerous once you learn their weaknesses. They do not like light or cold. I used that against them." "You fought void leeches with your bare hands," said slowly, "and you survived." "I did not have a choice," said simply. "If I died, the colonists died, so I refused to die." Was shaking her head in amazement. 11 years of this. 11 years of fighting and fixing and surviving alone. How did you not lose your mind? Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "I did lose it. Several times. There were months when I forgot how to speak because there was no one to talk to. There were times when I saw people who were not there, times when I screamed at the walls just to hear a voice, times when I thought about giving up and letting the cold take me. She looked up at the old scholar. But every time I wanted to quit, I would walk past the pods. I would look at the faces frozen inside. Children, parents, good people who trusted us to take them somewhere safe. And I would keep going. A young pilot spoke up from the crowd. You did all this for strangers, people you did not even know. Looked at him. They were not strangers, they were my people, my responsibility. When you are the only one awake, everyone else depends on you. I was not going to let them down. The tavern was silent again. Something had changed in the way the aliens looked at her. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Awe, perhaps, or respect. I finally reached this system a few days ago, continued. The ship had almost nothing left. The engines were failing. The hull was ready to break apart. I aimed for the nearest moon and crashed. The explosion we saw 3 days ago, and said, that was your ship. Part of it, the front section where I was, but the main body of the ship is still in orbit. The pods are still there. The colonists are still alive. His voice grew urgent. I walked for 2 days across the surface to reach this settlement. I need to find a way back to them. I need to make sure they are safe. Before anyone could respond, a harsh sound filled the tavern. Static and beeping, an emergency signal coming through the communication system. And rushed to check it, his blue face went pale. There is a distress signal from orbit, he said. From a wreck matching your ship's description, it says. He stopped, unable to continue. What does it say? Demanded. Raiders, they have found your ship. They are boarding it now. Stood up so fast that her chair flew backward. Her tired eyes were suddenly sharp and focused. Her whole body tensed like a predator ready to strike. The colonists, she said, they will take the colonists. Raiders sell captured species to the slave markets, said gravely. If they find 153 humans in sleep, they will take every single one. His hands curled into fists. For 11 years she had kept those people alive. She had sacrificed everything for them. She had fought and bled and nearly died 100 times to protect them. She was not going to lose them now. I need a ship, she said. Her voice was calm, but something dangerous burned behind her eyes. Right now. Looked around the tavern, every face stared back at her. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. Please, she said, does anyone have a ship, anything that can reach orbit? Silence. The aliens looked at each other, then at the floor. The raiders were known throughout the galaxy. They were brutal and ruthless. Their ships carried heavy weapons. Their warriors killed without mercy. Nobody wanted to face them. They are too dangerous, someone muttered. It would be suicide. There are at least 20 of them on that ship, another voice added. What can one person do against 20? His expression did not change. She had faced worse odds before. She had fought void leeches in the dark. She had kept a dying ship alive through pure willpower. She was not afraid of raiders. Then I will find another way, she said. She turned toward the door. I will walk to the spaceport if I have to. I will steal a ship if I must. But I am going up there and nothing will stop me. She started walking. Wait. The voice came from behind the bar, and stepped forward, his 4 hands clasped together nervously. His blue face was tight with fear, but his eyes held something else. Determination, maybe. I have a cargo shuttle, he said slowly. It is old and small, but it can reach orbit. Everyone stared at him. Are you crazy? A patron shouted. You will get yourself killed. And shook his head. I fought in the Fringe Wars many years ago. My unit was trapped behind enemy lines. We thought we were going to die, then a human came. His voice grew quiet. She was a medic, small, unarmed. But she walked through enemy fire like it was rain. She carried wounded soldiers on her back one after another until everyone was safe. I still have nightmares about what she did to the enemies who tried to stop her. He looked at. I never forgot that. I never forgot what humans can do when they are protecting someone. If you are going up there to save your people, I want to help. Nodded slowly, thank you. I am coming too. Stood up leaning on her cane. Her old face was set with determination. I have spent my whole life studying history. This might be the most important moment I will ever witness. I will not miss it. And me? The young pilot stepped forward. He was barely an adult, his scales still bright with youth. I have never done anything important in my life. I want to change that. One by one, others joined. A mechanic who owed gambling debts, a trader who had lost her family to slavers. Even, still bleeding from his cracked armor, limped forward. If humans are everything the legends say, the bounty hunter growled, then I want to see one fight for real. Looked at her strange new crew. A bartender, a scholar, a young pilot, a bounty hunter, and a handful of others, against 20 raiders. The odds were terrible. She smiled anyway. 30 minutes later, and shuttle docked with the wreckage of the Perseverance. The ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered in the corridors. Smoke drifted through the air. Stepped off the shuttle first. She moved silently, her body low and tense. 11 years on this ship had taught her every corner, every shadow, every hiding place. She knew it better than the raiders ever could. Stay behind me, she whispered to the others. Only fight if you have to. They crept through the corridors. The sounds of the raiders echoed through the ship, harsh laughter, crashing metal. They were tearing the Perseverance apart, looking for valuable cargo. Stopped at a junction and listened. 4 raiders in the corridor ahead, 2 more in the room beyond. They had not found the chamber yet. Wait here, she said. Before anyone could argue, she moved. What happened next would haunt the aliens for the rest of their lives. Did not run, she flowed. She moved through the shadows like she was made of darkness. The first raider never saw her coming. One moment he was standing guard, the next he was on the floor with his weapon in her hands. The second raider turned and raised his gun, was already inside his reach. Her elbow hit his throat, her knee hit his chest. He fell without making a sound. The third and fourth tried to fight back. They were warriors, bred for combat, armed with advanced weapons. They should have destroyed her in seconds. They lasted less than 10. Used everything around her as a weapon. Pipes, debris, the walls themselves. She moved faster than seemed possible for her size. She took hits that would have killed any other species and kept moving like they were nothing. When it was over, 4 lay on the ground, stood in the middle of them, breathing hard. A cut on her forehead dripped blood into her eyes. She wiped it away and kept moving. The aliens following her could not speak. They had heard the legends about humans. They had not believed them. Now they believed. The fight through the ship took less than an hour, led them from corridor to corridor, chamber to chamber. Every time they met raiders, the result was the same. They had numbers and weapons, had something else, something the galaxy had no word for. She had the fury of a Death World survivor protecting her pack. The remaining raiders tried to make a stand in the cargo bay. There were 8 of them, heavily armed, ready for battle. They saw coming and opened fire. She did not stop. She ran through the gunfire like it was not there. Shots hit her arms, her legs, her side. She stumbled but did not fall. She reached the first raider and took his weapon. Then she used it. Watched from behind a crate. He had seen many warriors in his life. He had never seen anything like this. Was injured, bleeding. She should have been dead 3 times over, but she kept fighting. Every time she fell, she got back up. Every time they hit her, she hit back harder. She refused to stop. She refused to die. When the last raider fell, stood alone in the middle of the cargo bay. Her body was covered in wounds. Her clothes were soaked with blood. She swayed on her feet like she might collapse. But she did not collapse. She turned to the others with fire still burning in her eyes. The chamber, she said. Her voice was rough but steady. We need to check the chamber. They found it at the heart of the ship, 153 pods, still glowing with soft blue light, still keeping their precious cargo safe and frozen. Walked along the rows of pods, checking each one. Her bloody hands left marks on the glass. Her injured body trembled with exhaustion, but she checked every single pod. Finally, she stopped at one near the end. The light was different here, flickering, unstable. "No," she whispered. The pod was damaged. A stray shot from the battle must have hit it. The systems were failing. The child inside, a little girl with dark hair and peaceful face, had minutes left to live. Fell to her knees beside the pod. After everything she had done, after 11 years of fighting, after all the blood she had spilled tonight. She was going to lose one of them anyway. "No," she said again. "No, no, no." Approached slowly. She looked at the failing pod and felt her heart's break. "I am sorry," the old scholar said. "There is nothing we can do. The damage is too severe." Looked up at her with tears in her eyes. "There has to be something. There has to be a way." And in that moment, with blood still dripping from her wounds, the most dangerous creature in the galaxy began to cry. Knelt beside the failing pod, tears cutting lines through the blood and dirt on her face. The little girl inside looked so peaceful, so innocent. She had no idea how close she was to death. Studied the pod's displays with shaking hands. The old scholar had seen many tragedies in her long life. This felt like one of the worst. "The systems are failing," she said. "The child will die within minutes unless we do something." Looked up. "What can we do? Tell me anything. I will do whatever it takes." Hesitated. "We could wake her up. Her body would survive the process, but she would need specialized care for months to recover properly, care that does not exist here." "Then I will provide that care," said immediately. "Wake her up now." "You do not understand," protested. "She will need constant attention, special nutrition, temperature control, medical monitoring. You are already injured. You have been awake for 11 years. You cannot possibly." "I kept 153 people alive for 11 years on a dying ship," interrupted. Her voice was steady despite the tears. "I can keep one little girl alive until we find help. Wake her up." The others gathered around as worked the controls. They watched in silence as the blue light faded and the pod hissed open. Cold air poured out, carrying the scent of chemicals and sleep. The little girl's eyes fluttered open. She was confused at first. Her body was weak and clumsy from the long sleep. She tried to move but could not. She tried to speak but only managed a small sound. Then she saw his face looking down at her, and she began to cry. "Mommy," she whispered, "where is my mommy?" His heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She did not know this child's mother, but she knew that the woman had been among the 2,000 who died in their pods. This little girl was alone now. She had no one left. "Except," said softly. She reached down and gently lifted the child from the pod. The girl was so small in her arms, so fragile. "It is okay. You are safe now. I have you." "I am scared," the girl whimpered. "Everything is strange. I do not know where I am." "I know," said. She held the child close to her chest, sharing her warmth. "I know you are scared, but I am going to take care of you, I promise. What is your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered. "Hello, Lily. My name is, I am going to protect you, okay? Nothing is going to hurt you while I am here." Lily wrapped her tiny arms around his neck and held on tight. She was still crying, but the terror was fading. Something about made her feel safe. The aliens watched this scene in stunned silence. Just minutes ago had been a monster of destruction. She had torn through armed raiders like they were made of paper. She had taken wounds that would kill anyone else and kept fighting. She had been terrifying. Now she was holding a frightened child with infinite gentleness. Her voice was soft and warm. Her eyes, which had burned with killing fury, were now full of love and protection. Spoke first. His voice was rough with confusion. "I do not understand," he said. "You are the most dangerous creature I have ever seen. You killed a dozen warriors like they were nothing, and now you are." "Being a person," finished softly. "She is being a person." The old scholar understood now. Humans were not monsters. They were not mindless killing machines. They were something far more complex and far more beautiful. They were survivors who loved fiercely. They were warriors who fought for their families. They were people who would walk through fire for those they cared about. Had spent 11 years in hell protecting strangers, and now she was ready to spend whatever time it took caring for one frightened little girl, not because she had to, but because that was what humans did. They protected their pack. Over the next few hours, word spread across 4 and beyond. A human had awakened. A Death World survivor had arrived in the galaxy, and she had brought with her a cargo of sleeping colonists and a message that would change everything. Humans were not the monsters from legend. They were not unstoppable killers. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were people who would never give up. Ships began to arrive at 4. Some came out of curiosity, wanting to see the legendary human for themselves. Some came out of fear, wanting to know if the stories were true. But many came to help. Doctors offered to treat Lily and the other colonists when they woke up. Engineers offered to repair what remained of the Perseverance. Pilots offered to escort the humans to a safe new home. The galaxy had heard story. They had heard about the 11 years alone in the dark. They had heard about the fight against the raiders. They had heard about the woman who refused to let her people die, no matter what it cost her. And they wanted to be part of what happened next. Sat in Anne's shuttle, watching the stars through the viewport. Lily was asleep in her lap, finally peaceful after the long and terrifying day. The little girl's breathing was steady and calm. She trusted completely. Sat across from them, her recording device still running. She had so many questions, but she could see that was exhausted. The human had been awake for over 20 hours. She had fought, bled, and nearly died. She deserved rest. But there was one question had to ask. "What will you do now?" the old scholar asked. "When you find a new world for your people, when the colonists wake up and start building their new home, what will you do then?" Looked at Lily's sleeping face, then she looked out at the stars. "The same thing humans always do," she said. "We survive, we adapt, we build something worth protecting." She smiled, and even though she was covered in blood and wounds, the smile was warm. Earth taught us how to fight, but it also taught us how to hope, how to keep going when everything seems impossible, how to find family even among strangers. She looked at, "You and the others helped me tonight. You did not have to, you were scared of me, but you helped anyway." "You needed help," said simply. "Yes, and now I will remember that. Humans remember kindness, we repay it." Eyes grew serious. "The galaxy thinks we are monsters because we come from a death world, but we are not monsters. We are just people who learn to survive in a hard place. And everything we learned, every skill and instinct that makes us dangerous, we use to protect the ones we love." She looked down at Lily again. "This girl has no family anymore, no home, no one to take care of her except me. I barely know her, but she is one of mine now, and I will protect her with everything I have." Nodded slowly. She understood now why her old texts called humans both the most terrifying and the most beloved species in the galaxy. They were both at the same time. "The galaxy will never be the same after today," she said. "Word will spread about what happened here, about you, about your people." Smiled again. "Good, let them talk. Let them know that humans have arrived. Let them know that we come in peace, but we are not peaceful. We want friends, but we are not weak. And God help anyone who threatens our family." She closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the seat. "Because we will never stop fighting for each other. That is what makes us human." Outside the viewport, more ships were gathering. A small fleet growing larger by the hour. Ships from a dozen different species, all following the human and her sleeping colonists, all wanting to be part of whatever came next. The galaxy had been quiet for a very long time. Species kept to themselves. Wars were rare. Nothing ever really changed. But everything had changed now. A Death World survivor had walked into a tavern on a forgotten moon. She had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. The fury and the gentleness. The violence and the love. The terrible, wonderful complexity of beings who had evolved in hell and carried heaven in their hearts. And as slept with Lily in her arms, surrounded by new friends and old stars, the galaxy began to whisper a new truth. Humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.